All right, here we go. The late night happy hours here on a Friday. See if John Von Tobel's along in a little bit, but Dave Koken's here. It's Cofield, as we have a bunch to go over from the weekend. We got some baseball to go over from this week. Dave, did you bet anything tonight? Because I did.
I did not.
Really?
Wish I'd have bet Wyoming. Probably should have when it got to +3, but I didn't, and cost myself a winner there. Would not have. I had no idea in the Minnesota Maryland game. I thought that the number was too high, but I didn't want any part of Maryland.
Yeah.
And I guess you could argue that I thought the line was a little high on the Tulsa side, but I didn't want any part of East Carolina. So I generally won't take dogs, even if I like them, unless I think they can win the game. And I sure didn't think Maryland could win the game.
Yeah, I jumped on Minnesota once Maryland went up, in play. So I think it was 14-0. You could get Minnesota at -4.5 when Minnesota was down 14-0. It went to 21-7. Then it dropped to Minnesota -3.5. So I took that. They came all the way back. It looked really good going to the fourth quarter. They're up 38-21. They're running the ball. Maryland can't do shit. And I got to tell you, so if people didn't watch it, Minnesota wound up losing. They went to overtime. They couldn't kick an extra point to keep the game going, but they gave up a touchdown in overtime, which is always deadly. Well, I don't know, man. Fleck annoys me, and I think he's a decent program builder. What do you think of him? Have we all gotten, or a lot of people gotten too hyped on this dude?
I don't know. I'm not going to. I thought he did a great job last year with a team that, in my opinion, overachieved. And I always liked him at Western Michigan. He didn't have his team prepared to play tonight. But, that's going to happen to every coach. What amazed me, though, was the utter incompetence on the part of both coaches at the end of regulation. Okay, it's fourth down for Maryland. They can't kick a field goal from where they are. You got to call timeout with 25 seconds left. Not to get the ball back, but to make sure that Maryland doesn't run it down to 2 seconds, take a timeout, and throw a Hail Mary. Which you never know. You can get a defensive interference, or you can maybe catch it for a touchdown. Yep. So that was a mistake, a really bad mistake by Fleck. It's basic stuff. But he gets away with it because Loxley is too stupid to call timeout with 2 seconds left and take that free shot to the end zone. I just don't understand it. The easiest aspect of coaching should be end of the half or end of the game clock management strategy. It's really not that difficult. And you see coaches screw it up game after game after game. I just don't get it.
I was just looking at the final numbers here. The younger Tagovailoa, hell of a game. 394 in the air, 3 touchdowns and interception. He also had a bust-out run for a touchdown for 39 yards. Maybe he's got something here. And then Maryland's got this the rarity of all rarities in college football, the white running back. They got a kid in Funk who went out tonight and rushed for 221 yards. So Jake Funk, that suggests to me that Maryland is probably just at best going to be a 500 team. If they're playing that kind of defense off a Michigan game where they got boat raced, that scares me. And the other thing, based on what I saw against Minnesota tonight, I've thought that Michigan State was the right side all week against Michigan. Michigan, I mean, they finally battened down the hatches in the opener game against Minnesota. But I don't know. I want to downgrade Michigan just a little bit in that game against Michigan State.
Yeah, I'm not going to downgrade it much, but that number does appear to be too high, and it looks like there's been some educated money on Michigan State. By the way, great day for guys named Funk, because he had the running back for Maryland, and 64-year-old Fred Funk made the cut in the PGA tournament down in Bermuda. He's 1 under par, and that's pretty impressive for a 64-year-old in a PGA event. Not many guys have done that. His son's also in the tournament. He beat his son by 13 strokes.
Nice. You 60-something guys, you stick together.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Way to go, seniors.
We're going to get to a 70-something guy later on in baseball. I wanted to mention the other game, Dave, because Von Tobel and I were chatting about it on the air and a little bit off. We were both really strong on Wyoming tonight. And again, like I just made the point, I'm trying to judge week 2, Minnesota and Maryland, and go back and, judge Minnesota and what we're going to do with Michigan. Be careful about overreacting to week one because Hawaii goes to Fresno, freaking rips the hell out of them, and carries the ball 53 times. Fresno looks like ass, and everyone bets CSU last night. That line gets pushed up. You see Colorado State in its first game against Fresno. Fresno bounces back in game 2 and smashes, just completely crushes that dolt Steve Adazio. And I loved Wyoming tonight for a couple of reasons. One, they were at home, right? 2, you got Hawaii hanging out in the mainland for 2 weeks. And now Wyoming knows what Hawaii does. And Wyoming also, I think they were devastated in the first half. You know how hard it is to play when you see a guy who's been off injured, like Sean Chambers, go down 3 plays into the game and snap his friggin' leg. You have an experience. It's a real rarity, and we'll punch up John here. It's a real rarity in college football that now, because of that 4-game rule where you can redshirt, Levi Williams got playing time last year. He still has freshman eligibility, but already played. So I thought he looked good, and they played their style because they're so goddamn physical. John, how happy were you to see Wyoming win? And we talked about Wyoming and Hawaii on the air. That was they should have scored more in the first half, so it was a little nerve-wracking going to the second. But, man, once they turned it on, that was it. Hawaii was done.
Yep, completely dominated. 281 yards rushing, too. It was absolutely fantastic. And that's what you liked about him, right? Because this year, all 5 offensive linemen coming back, your leading rusher from last year, like this is the way that you expected them to play. Did you go over the line move with Dave, too? Because we were tracking that this entire time. Like, Dave, I don't know how much you tracked this number. It was nuts. Like, it opened, Circa opened at Hawaii 1. It got to 2 early in the week. And then when I left the show at VSiN this morning to go to Steve's show, it was Wyoming -1.5. And then it closes Hawaii -3. Like, the number was everywhere. It was nuts.
Yeah, the last stuff was the Steam Chasers who decided, well, I got to get on Hawaii because that's who the sharp guys are on. I don't think the sharp guys necessarily were, but in any event, it was a perfect setup for bowl ball, and he that's just his style.
Yep.
Nothing fancy. We're just going to beat you in the trenches. We're going to run the football because Valladay's better than anybody you got, and we're going to win the game. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be old 1970s Woody Hayes style football.
Yep.
But it works. I think way more coaches should do that. They should realize what type of personnel they actually have. and they don't. They all want to play the same way.
Yeah.
Play at warp speed, throw it all over the place. If you got a shitty quarterback, that's not what you do. And I'm not knocking the kid for Wyoming, but he's not a great passer. And they're both smart. I mean, he gets the absolute max out of his team every year. Guy was a terrific coach in the Dakotas, and he's doing an outstanding job at Wyoming. That's not a real talented team. They're going to win a lot of games.
I think the other interesting part of what you just said, in terms of figuring out who your team is when you're a new coach and you come in, like it worked last week for Hawaii, but when I watched tonight, I'm like, I don't know if you saw this, John. Cordero looks like he lacks all confidence throwing the ball now. That was a throwing football a year ago. He's in and out of the game. They're playing one of the receivers at quarterback at times in goal line situations. That one mystified me. And also, I'll go back to the Colorado State game yesterday. I don't get why Steve Adazio came in, has a team that's built to throw, and immediately he's like, oh, we're going to be, downhill power football team. Like, bro, you haven't recruited your players yet. And he takes out the kid, Patrick O'Brien, a quarterback, puts in the Temple transfer who can't throw the ball, and they look like hell.
Yep, absolutely. And you know what's funny, too, when you watch Cordero especially in the first half, at least there's like 2 that's come to mind. There were 2 throws in which his receivers had beat their guy, and they were open. Like, he had perfectly open guys, but he would overthrow them by a mile. Like, he had no touch on where he was going with the deep ball. And what's weird is he throws like a really nice ball. Like, he's like such a really good thrower of the actual football. It's like Uncle Rico. I don't know if you understand this reference, Dave. Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite, who's like, I bet I can throw this ball over the mountains over here. Like, he can throw it a mile, but he doesn't have any touch or accuracy with it.
No, I'm not familiar with that. I know Napoleon McCallum, but I don't not familiar with Napoleon Dynamite. I know the title of the movie, and that's it.
We should also thank our Thursday guest who talks football betting is Brad Powers. And when we brought up Wyoming and Hawaii, he was like, yeah, this total's way too high. He's like, Bowl is going to go back to basics. He's going to get downhill. He's going to grind it out. And I got it, I think, this morning at 59.5, and then it went up to 60, and it didn't even sniff it. It finished up at 38. So not a bad start to the college football weekend. We'll see if we can keep it going. So if you've got questions about college football games, and we go pretty deep here, you can fire that out there. Dave will answer. John will answer. John, of course, from VSiN, and Dave from WagerTalk.com. So I'll go back to that Michigan game for an official pick. Oops, I didn't get it at 24.5, 25. Yeah, now maybe it went too low. It's 21.5. So I'll start with John. What do you do with this game now? John, do you want to lay Michigan now that it, who knows, maybe it gets to 21 tomorrow, but it's 21.5, 22.
I feel like I'd rather have Michigan State, like, just because I think, like, we see, I don't know, I just, sometimes we see this, and Dave can speak to this, it's like, we see so many times reactions off of results, right? And, like, Michigan State looked terrible, and they turned the ball over 7 times, but you're getting, like, 2 teams coming off of, like, ultimate results, right? Like, Michigan blows out Minnesota, which, by the way, you know, like, blowing them out doesn't look that incredible anymore, right? Considering how bad their defense looked today against Maryland. And then you get a Michigan State team who turned the ball over as many times as they did against Rutgers, and you're getting them at an all-time low. Like, is it an overreaction to make it that high for Michigan, considering what we saw out of their opponent now in Minnesota? Like, I think I'd rather have Michigan State, but it's not the best read on my end.
I made the line 17, I think was my number.
Yeah.
But it falls into that category of the only way I'm going to win this is if they cover. And I just don't like those bets,
Right?
Because they if it gets it away from them early, they can get beat by 40, and that's the problem. Is Michigan State's offense might be just that bad. It wasn't good last year. They bring in Tucker, who didn't exactly set the world on fire last year at Colorado. I don't understand that hire.
Yep.
And these might be some lean times coming up for the Spartans. Have to wait and see.
How about the Trevor Lawrence situation? Will this dip below 24? Will people freak out tomorrow? It is a 9 a.m. start, so we'll see what kind of action we get overnight into the morning. Clemson, without Trevor Lawrence, is 24.5 now against Boston College. Dave?
Yeah, we talked about this one this afternoon. If I had to bet it, I'd take BC, because I think all Clemson wants to do here is keep things relatively simple, complete the game, get it out of the way, and hope that Lawrence is able to go against Notre Dame, which is, it's a title game next week. That's a playoff game. So I don't want Boston College. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea about the Clemson kid who's playing quarterback. If he's recruited by Clemson, chances are he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's highly touted. He was the number 1 pocket passer recruit in the country. Some say he's number 1 recruit. I don't know if he is. I mean, I think the kid Bryce Young he's smaller, a lot smaller, totally different quarterback. Bryce Young from Mater Dei was actually number 1, and he flipped from USC to Alabama. But this kid's a monster. He could also run a lot. He's 6'5", 240. So he's a big-time prospect. But, to Dave's point, I don't know if they're going to run the whole offense with this guy or they're going to stay on the ground mostly. Dave or John, what do you think?
So, by the way, I'm going to do it. DJ
Nice.
Uiagalelei. Look at that, dude. I've been
good.
practicing. I'm really good with it now. So my worry with this is if you looked at some of the things with Boston College, like first off with BC, like going into that game against Georgia Tech, they were 75th in terms of the rushing offense. They were averaging like 2.3 yards per carry. Like they can't run the ball. And all of a sudden they destroy Georgia Tech on the ground, and I'm pretty sure that's an anomaly. And it worries me against Clemson because they're going to be one-dimensional again because they're not going to be able to run the ball, which means Jurkovich and company are just going to get destroyed, right? Because this front seven's awesome in terms of rushing the passer. Like I just feel like from a matchup standpoint, in so many ways, it's just not a good matchup for BC. And I wonder if just because of that, they're still going to be able to run an offense against BC that is going to operate at a high enough level they'll be able to score, and their offense is going to get so stymied that they will be able to cover a number like this. Like I kind of feel like I'd rather have Clemson depending on where the number goes, but that's just kind of, it's not something I'm going to get involved with. But if it gets low enough, I think it's something worth looking at.
It's one of those games. For me, it's one of those games that immediately just toss it out. I don't know what Clemson's going to run, and if Clemson decides to open things up, they could name the score. So you don't have to bet every game, and I think this is one to just stay away from.
Right. Calm down, everybody. John, you have any idea where this was, where it will be? Any clue on the Clemson with Lawrence, without Lawrence against Notre Dame?
So I know that the before the year started, DraftKings had opened at 7.5. I saw that it had gotten to 13.5, but I wasn't entirely sure. I think DraftKings had it at 13.5. Maybe Dave, you could speak to that. But
Oh,
though I know
know.
for sure. Yeah. Okay. So, but I know for sure that the game of the year line was 7.5, and I did see a few people tweeting. Yeah, and I figured that much, and I did see a few people tweeting like, "Oh, there goes that 13.5. You won't get that." So maybe it had gotten up to that point, but I didn't see a what's it called, recent line.
On power ratings with both teams healthy, 12.5.
Yeah. All right. That would make sense.
That's my number.
How much would all of us bet that Trevor Lawrence is going to be back for the game? Clemson is going to do whatever it has to do. Clemson ain't the Big Ten, so the Big Ten better change that rule. And I think they're going to do it next week. But the 21-day rule for Graham Mertz and others, that ain't going to stick. Trevor Lawrence will be back for what is one of their games of the year. That's a virtual guarantee.
Yeah, unless there's something that we don't know about, and if he tests positive again, I guess. But he's eligible to be off quarantine by that time, and that means he'll be on the field.
You agree with Truth here that Clemson will just whip Notre Dame?
No, I think Notre Dame will give him a game. That's why my number's 12.5. So, that's a clear win for Clemson, but Notre Dame's a good football team.
Dave, how's your cat? We saw a picture of your cat today on Twitter. How's it doing?
Oh, he's fine. I don't know where he is right now. He might be on the bed, might be in the recliner. He's someplace sleeping. He's an old cat.
Hanging out in the Eiffel Tower behind you. John, you made a comment.
No. Actually, they could use him there.
Sure. crime fighting cat to take out all the gunmen roaming the strip. John, you made a
because of the rodent issue with the shut down the power.
They wires. That's right. John, you made a comment off there about Dave's cat. You said you thought you kind of expected him to be kind of rough looking. What does that mean?
He looked rough and tumble. He looked like a Dave Koken cat. Like the cat that I expected Dave to own. That was the cat. Like that was exactly what I expected.
Might very well be. I don't know his history. I got him. It's just about 3 years now, almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years next month, and he was an old cat when I got him as a rescue, and they didn't have anything on his history, but he was really friendly. So that's why he ended up with me.
Dave, could you be a kitten guy?
I had kittens.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. After the cat that I brought out here. I had gone back to, this is a funny story. I had gone back to visit my folks. I guess it was in 87, I think. And there's a restaurant a couple of miles from my house, my parents' house, called Cello's, which has the best fish and chips on the entire planet. It's just absolutely great. So I took my old man's car and drove down there to get some fish and chips. And across the street from Cello's was a parking lot I think it was a trophy business or something like that wasn't open. And as I'm walking into the restaurant, somebody pulls in. I don't know if it was a guy or a woman. I assume it's a guy because I don't think women would do this. But somebody pulls into the parking lot. They open the door and they toss something out of the car.
No.
That's weird.
Wow.
And then they drove away. And so I'm looking over there and I see the something moving around. It was kind of dusk, so I couldn't really see exactly what it was. So I got to see what that is. So I walk across the street. It's two little kittens.
Dick.
One of them took off, and I couldn't see where it went. It went in the other direction. The other one's just sitting there with a dumb look on its face, like, what the hell's going on here? So I picked it up, took it home, and had every intention of taking it to the rescue. But I ended up getting a ticket for it and flying it out to Las Vegas, and that cat stayed with me till it died. And then a friend of mine, her cat had a litter. She just brought over two kittens. Didn't ask her anything. She just showed up with two kittens. So all right, I'll take them. And one of them lived to be 22 years old and change. Mm-hmm. And after he died, I went and decided, well, you know what? I'm going to go rescue a senior cat because they're really tough to adopt. Nobody wants old cats. And got this guy, and it's been we get along very well.
It's good. I think we have to rename this. We have to come up with something quirky. We have to rename this podcast on Friday nights.
That was good times,
right? Something with cats and cash or something.
Cut it out. Sorry.
And then John yelling at his cat all the time. Getting too rambunctious.
See, that's the nice thing about having an old cat. They don't do anything. I mean, for him, his excitement is he might knock a ball like 2 feet and then he'll just stare at it. And it's like, where's the food?
Man, we'll see. I have 2 cats that went outside tonight, so good luck, fella. Good luck, lady. It's mischief night, so I wish you luck. I tried to tell you, but they do what they want. You know that.
Are they in costume?
Yeah. Yeah, it's Cofield's cat hour or Koken's cat hour. See, I screwed that up. All right. Some more games. I know we love the cat talk. We could do this all night long. And again, I'll get to some of the games you guys are mentioning. Ooh, all right. There's a 10 out there now. I think Ohio State's going to crush Penn State. Dave, you made the argument, not necessarily for Penn State, but you made the argument that the Nittany Lions might not get crushed.
Well, I mean, they just killed Indiana last week. They killed them. That was a horrible loss. Horrible loss. You're not supposed to lose games when you outgain the opponent by almost 300 yards, which is what they did. And Indiana's not bad. So I think Penn State is capable of hanging in. I would have liked this spot a lot if it was what it was supposed to be. A Saturday night whiteout in State College, packed 100,000 plus. And I mean, they would, and I don't care who you are, that's an intimidating crowd. But there's not going to be 100,000 plus in a whiteout. And I think that Ohio State's one of those, Penn State's one of those teams that's really going to suffer from not having their usual home field advantage. So I'll get a feel for it tomorrow night. Maybe worth an in-game thing. But just on the stat thing, I can't lay that many points.
John, Ohio State minus 10.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. And, my whole thing was like the number itself, right? Like to Dave's point, 3.4 yards per play is what Indiana had, like 211 total yards. We say this all the time, right? But this was literally a game Penn State should have won. Right, so, and I thought that was kind of an overreaction to, at least for the market, to drive it all the way up to 13, right? And now that we're at 10, it makes a little bit more sense. Like at 13, I was in on Penn State. And now we're sitting at 10, like, I really don't want to get in on it, but it seemed like an overreaction. It seemed like the market was just like, oh, Penn State lost to Indiana. But when you looked at everything that happened in that game, you realize like they kind of killed them, giving up really short scoring drives because they were turning the ball over, right? They missed 2 field goals. They had another scoring drive that they fumbled on like the 7-yard line. Like it was just an atrocious performance. And I felt like 13 was an overreaction.
And the flip side of that, by the way, I think explains why you saw some decent money come in on Rutgers this week against Indiana, because that was a fraud win all the way by Indiana. And by the way, they've got a huge game next week. I think they've got Michigan next week. So it's kind of a sandwich. Is that right? Do I have that right with Indiana? I better check before I make an ass out of myself, because I do that sometimes. I'll have to I've got to find my Indiana Rutgers notes.
They got Michigan. They got
Michigan. Okay. So it's a sandwich game off a win they never should have had. Rutgers has got to be feeling great about themselves coming out of a win with the new coach. They've got some momentum. Rutgers, you can make a good argument that Rutgers gives them a game here. I didn't play it, but I didn't play Rutgers last week and kind of regretted it. It might be the same story tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Someone on the board asking about Central Florida 3 against Houston. I don't think Houston's any good.
I don't either.
Man, so I guess 3 would be enticing. The total. Oh, mama. The total. There's a high of 82 at the Westgate, Central Florida and Houston. What do you want to do with this, Dave?
I made the number 5.
Okay.
So there's some value on Central Florida with the number where it is now.
Yeah.
Didn't make my card, but definite consideration.
John, you playing the over 82?
No, I think I'll be okay.
Come on.
Well, I would assume that is baked a little bit higher than it should be too, considering that the perception of these two teams as well. I would think there would be some inherent value in taking a game like this under.
Look at you. Betting with your head, not your heart. Don't we all want to see, don't we all want to see 100 plus in this competitive AAC game? Let's see. I'm going to go back to near the top of the board. Actually, I wanted to ask Dave because I've been playing bounce back dogs this week in the Mountain West Conference. What do you think of San Diego State? What do we do with that first half against UNLV, or San Diego State, more accurately, what happened in the second half, where it was basically an even game, and then Utah State, didn't play real well against Boise, but Utah State at home, you got elevation. I'm sure it's going to be a little bit brisk. Should San Diego State be laying 8.5 on the road?
I think that Utah State is a team I might not wager on at all.
Yep.
I don't like their coach. I think it was a bad hire, or a bad rehire, as the case would be. And the Aztecs had the game at halftime and just didn't do anything in the second half. They just completely flattened out. The game was over. So I thought a lot of that was garbage time, which I don't even chart garbage time stats. So I just threw out I basically threw out the second half as far as the stats go in San Diego State, UNLV. They didn't matter. The game was over. No, I don't want Utah State. I didn't lay it, but because I think you're paying a premium already because Utah State was that bad last week. But they might be that bad.
John?
I would agree with that. Like Utah State, from what you've seen of them since Anderson has come back, and I know it hasn't been a large sample size, but it's all been negative, right? It's all been trending down. And to start the way that they did this year, and I don't see a team that is worth wagering on in my mind. So I would want no part of it. I will say,
and look, the drop off from Jordan Love, is enormous. That's the biggest drop off at quarterback in the country, because Jordan Love was a really good college quarterback.
Yep. Especially in this conference too.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? He was an incredible quarterback in this conference. And even then still, Dave, and I get it, they didn't have a lot coming back offensively last year. They took such a big step back with last year. You know what I mean? That was the incredible part under Anderson. Even though they still had Love, they still took a big step back.
I thought they were I'm not gonna lie. I thought Utah State going into last year was a team that had a chance to be playing in the New Year's Day Power Five, whatever they call it, the stupid thing.
The New Year's Six.
I mean, they were going to get beat by LSU, but that was a team that when I did their schedule prior to the start of last season, it's if they beat Wake Forest, which they should beat in this first game, they'll lose to LSU and they might win every other game. Well, that sure didn't happen. And they lost to Wake Forest, and from there it was pretty much all downhill. I thought he did a terrible coaching job. Worse than when he was at Wisconsin, where he wasn't very good, and worse than he did the first time around at Utah State, where he was average at best. I don't know why they hired these. It's like hiring Les Miles at Kansas. What's the point? The guy's retired, okay? Let him stay retired, which we'll talk about more later on as it pertains to another sport.
Sure. West Virginia's 5.5 against Kansas State. John?
It's up to 5.5, huh? See, now that it's that high, I kind of understood. Opened 3.5, and now it's up to 5.5. I don't really love Kansas State's. And his name escapes me. The backup quarterback that they got going, and I don't think he's that dynamic of a passer.
His name is not Skylar Thompson,
right? So, I don't really love him. The quarterback. I think they're fine defensively. And Dave, you and I have talked about this before. Obviously, this West Virginia team is not good offensively.
No.
Yeah, now that it's climbing, I would think I would take a gander at Kansas State.
I don't disagree. I think it's a toss-up. I don't like the Kansas State offense because it's got to be one-dimensional.
Yep.
They can't throw the ball. But look, I've seen West Virginia play 3 games. Their offensive line sucks. Okay, the quarterback isn't getting much time. He gets scatter-armed. He gets really scatter-armed when he's pressured. And I can see Kansas State scoring a touchdown on defense in this game that makes a difference. And West Virginia is another team that, look, they got past Baylor, but that was a completely unimpressive win.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the same without their fans either. There's some schools where it really, it's, if you're talking, I don't know, UNLV, they didn't have any home field advantage anyway. But there's teams like West Virginia that had 5-point home field advantages, really substantial. And they're just not there anymore. That West Virginia crowd is, I don't care how veteran your team is, it's still an intimidating atmosphere on a Saturday night, especially if it's a night game, because those fans are really into it, burning furniture or whatever they do. and the rifles are going off. It's crazy there.
Goddamn
They don't
musket.
have any of that now.
The muskets, yeah.
Fucking
Yeah.
musket. They shoot it indoors. They got a Mountaineer guy in the basketball arena shooting off the musket. You're like, what's going on here?
The shrapnel.
Well, he's a pretty good shot, though.
Absolutely. Oh, they look for opposing fans, John. They'll take a couple out in each game.
I've always wanted to catch a game there, not as a visitor, but that seems like one of the places that's probably the most fun to watch a home game.
If your team's competing, I was there for a road game and the team didn't compete, so it gets pretty ugly pretty quickly. What do we do with this Cannon game? Some money's coming in on UNLV. It's now 13.5. A lot of 14s out there. I mean, this looks like they could get boat raced, but I don't know. But like I said, it was uneven last week because it was garbage time. But at least UNLV bounced back, fought, competed a bit with San Diego State, and Reno was so good in the first half and then let up in the second half.
Yeah, and Wyoming wasn't good last week, and they let Wyoming back in that game. It got kind of interesting in the fourth quarter. And you mentioned how flat Wyoming seemed to be in the first half after the quarterback got hurt. I think this line's too high. I don't have I'll freely admit I don't have the stones to bet UNLV, and it is a big revenge spot for the Wolfpack, and that does matter. They want that cannon back, and it was an ugly finish of that game last year with another fight. Not the first time that's happened in this series. So, I mean, if Reno gets a chance to stomp, I think they might, but I don't know if they're particularly good enough to do so. I'm not all that impressed with them. I know it's tough to back UNLV off what we saw last week, but I give them a shot to at least be very competitive in this game.
John?
Yeah, I would grab 14. I think. What I saw from Nevada last week was, like Steve, you're right. I don't know if the first half was more about what Wyoming was going through after losing Chambers 3 plays into a game, right? But like in the second half, that offensive line wasn't great. Wyoming was getting after Carson Strong. Strong was kind of soft in the pocket, like running out of the back of it and not really establishing himself. They had many opportunities near the end of that game too. Like it was perfect. It spoke to, I think, like the Nevada team we saw. At the end of that Wyoming game, they forced a turnover. They got the ball inside the 30-yard line. They settled for a field goal. Like they weren't really good last week. And I like to echo what Dave said. I've watched a lot of UNLV football. That was like shockingly one of the worst games I've watched them play, against San Diego State last week. But I just don't think Nevada should be a 14-point favorite even on the road in a pandemic. I don't think they should be a 14-point favorite on the road.
I know we have a lot of non-Nevada residents who don't know about the rivalry, don't know a whole lot about UNLV in the chat. But for those who are here, Dave's right, it's underrated. But I really wanted to ask everyone, what do you think about the quarterback situation? Who should get most of the playing time tomorrow? Dave, I'll start with you. I mean, this confuses me. And I'm not worried because I understand Arroyo's trying to change culture and he's trying to find his quarterback for next year. And clearly Oblad has not adjusted well to Arroyo so far. But if you want to win football games, who do you go with?
I kind of tossed Oblad. He did not look. He just didn't look right. And the pass at the end of the game, I know it was garbage time, but Jesus. I don't know. None of them are really good options. And let's face it, for this year, they're a team that you got to get the ball to Williams, and then you got to get the ball to Williams. That's the offense, okay?
Use 5 running backs, try to get downhill as much as possible.
That's
John,
what I would do.
John, where are you on the quarterback?
I think it should be Oblad. I think he gives him a better opportunity. And I think, Steve, you and I were talking about this, right? Like the whole putting in a quarterback in the midst of a game, I think for quarterbacks, depending on the player, it's kind of a weird situation for them. Some of them don't respond very well, right? I think Oblad's a guy last year was 18 touchdowns last year. He was really good against this Wolfpack team. I think he gives him more options in terms of the RPO. He's a little bit more mobile, a little bit more dual threat-ish, but he's still a pretty good passer. I just think he gives him a little bit of a better opportunity. And I think you get a little bit more confidence, Dave, right, as a quarterback, if they're like, all right, you're our starter here. Like you go out and you start from the beginning. But I think maybe you see a little bit something different from him.
But I like that comment. But I kind of think when the new coach came in, I think he thought, I'm going to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know the kid. I can't
Yeah.
say, but he didn't. He just didn't look very. He didn't look good last week, and I wonder if his confidence level or just his attitude isn't where it's supposed to be because he wasn't made the starter.
Yeah.
And you know, and I'm talking about the starter who's
Yeah.
going to have to lose the job.
I doubt it's his attitude. What I think could be happening, one, he didn't impress in the short lead up to the season. Two, he's not an alpha quarterback. He's just not. He's really calm, but he's not a take control guy. And I think for new coaches, they want take control guys. I don't know if Justin Rogers is that guy, but I will say I don't think Oblad's a come off the bench guy. I think he's got to start. I think if he comes off the bench, he's going to be nervous. And I do believe that Gillum, of all the guys, is a come off the bench guy. Like, I think he can come in relief, even as the third quarterback, and he would be fine. So I don't know what they're going to do. I like this number from Carvelli, but I do have to give you the scoop tomorrow. He says minus $1.70. I get hit by a player during this year's riot. I will be nowhere near the field. Now, if there's a fight, I will run on the field. I will risk it all. No, I won't be anywhere near the field. I'll be up in the stands. Von Tobel, who do you side with after we had Dave Hall on? Coke and I called the fight last year exhilarating. Dave Hall called it disgusting.
Because his team started it.
Oh, okay. I mean, it was pretty disgusting. My whole word of exhilarating was like being in the mix and seeing it going on. But like the visuals were pretty bad. We had Noah being the UNLV tight end, got a guy pinned against the wall and was just raining down punches on him like it was a UFC fight. Faulo did jump towards the crowd and had his helmet in his hand. That was bad. It did get really ugly, and so they'll avoid. I assume they'll avoid that this week. From what we hear, there's going to be a ton of people working, and I would assume I guess it would be a fuck ton of security around the field. That was one of the other things that got a bit undercovered, I guess is not the right word, but whatever. That fight broke out. Reno there were no cops around.
The two cops.
The security was so bad. Like the fact that I got in and other like strangers that weren't players were like in the midst of the brawl. Like where are the cops? So they just didn't staff it enough.
I'm not meaning to insult anybody in Reno here. I'm getting an echo for some reason. And I don't want to start talking like Rob Manfred. He had an echo tonight, by the way. That's what was happening with him. Thank you. It's gone now. I think you remember that the security set up in Thomas and Mack for the Mountain West tournament when they were worried about fans storming the court and problems. It's just a matter of being prepared. And we tend to be better prepared for this stuff in Las Vegas than in other areas of the state. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, dude. Well, look, Reno sucks. Like it's pretty easy to put it that way. Dave Hall even said it.
I like Northern Nevada. I like Reno. I like the fact that it's close to Lake Tahoe, which is wonderful. But they don't appear to be as good at crowd control in Reno as they are here, and I think that's a statement of fact.
Because they don't get crowds because everybody hates it up there.
Well, the other thing is that when UNLV went up for the first game at Reno since the fight for basketball, if you guys have been in Lawler, and they get crowds now, believe me, the crowd last year was down about probably 2,000, 3,000. It only holds like hot whatever, like low 11s. So the crowd was down about 2,500. They weren't, they're just not that fired up for Alford versus Musselman. But I went up to one of the cops and I was like, hey, what's the setup tonight? How many officers should you have here tonight? And it was like, yeah, we got like 8. Like 8. Like the players were just kicking the shit out of each other. And the football crowd is different than the basketball crowd.
Oh, sure.
The football crowd is real scumbaggish. The basketball crowd, there's a lot more students, like really up close. But I was shocked. I'm like, you guys got to have like freaking, and again, I don't know funding. I don't know what was going on that night. So I don't want to kill. I don't know that it's law enforcement in this case, but I was like, you guys better have freaking dozens here because the fans are really close to the court. So good for them that, Reno basketball team got out to a big start and then kind of rolled in that game. So there you have it. I don't think there'll be a brawl. And if there is, it'll be ended quickly by whoever's working it. If it's Metro or University Police here in Vegas.
I hope not, which is kind of a lie because I'm not going to bullshit anybody. I kind of enjoyed the brawl last year. I wasn't involved. I was just sitting at home watching on TV. So I was like, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
It was bad though, and
Yeah, I know
again,
it was.
well,
But
there was the aftermath too, because then what happened was, you've got these, you got fans who I'll just say would be, they're Reno fans, but they would say be anti-Kaepernick types. So once they got all riled up, well, they got to walk out around the stands, and then there's no tunnel, because it's a field that's kind of broken up with the stands and everything. Like you walk down a path, so they set up ropes, and the UNLV players are walking past all those fans, like right up close. And there were UNLV players who kept running back on the field, like back to the 50. You got security trying to wrestle them out. I mean, they got really emotional. I mean, they're kids, and hey, whatever. I'm old. I get emotional if I'm involved in a fight. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot worse in certain areas than people. Luckily, I didn't get my face punched in, so I probably should have. Because I did have more than a few shots where I was rolling on people, just kind of smirking at the Reno fans, just kind of laughing at them. So
that was fun.
I wasn't doing like a come at me, bro, but it was funny. One other Mountain West spot that we didn't mention, and we'll get to some more college football games and then NFL. Koken's here. We got John Von Tobel as well. All right. What do we think of Boise in this spot, guys? You got Boise against Air Force, and it's Boise 14.
Air Force is shorthanded. The running back situation isn't good. Collarbone for their best running back. The other guy's hurt. They've also got apparently 3 offensive linemen aren't playing. I knew it was one of them who wasn't. Now it looks like 3. They're not a very good football team. I think Boise. I know Boise's got BYU next week, and it's a huge game for them. But it's their first road game. I don't think they're going to take this lightly. Boise might just crush them in this game.
John?
Oh, you guys froze up for a second. So I didn't really have anything on this, but I will say that I thought if spinning it forward to like bring in Air Force, at least in terms of part of the conversation. Yeah. So Air Force losing to San Jose State, because I would agree with Dave. Like I don't think Air Force is really that good, and I think a lot of people were gung ho for a beatdown of a bad Navy team. San Jose State gets a big win over them, and it was like 14-9 or whatever the hell the score was. But now San Jose State is nearly a 2-touchdown favorite over New Mexico team that I think actually has some pretty good talent offensively. Quarterback, running back, I think they have the skill to at least stay within a number like 13.5, 14 against the San Jose State team.
I would agree. The only and look, they got Rocky Long now coaching the defense.
Yep,
and that's a tremendous upgrade. I had New Mexico as a bet last week, and obviously the game got canceled. The only thing that worries me is this completely disjointed setup that they've got in terms of where they're staying, and it just was enough to get me out of the game. But if I was going to take it, if I was going to play it, I'd play New Mexico. I think they're going to surprise some people this year.
For people who didn't hear the news, so New Mexico is actually going to train in Vegas next week before they go to Hawaii. I was sniffing around a little bit because I mentioned it on the air that, hey, what if New Mexico's like, we can't play any games in the state of New Mexico? Why don't we just make Vegas our home base? I was told that Sam Boyd is not available. So pretty that they actually asked, and it was like, yeah, Sam Boyd's not available to him. So there you go. So they'll have to figure it out. And my guess is they're going to be playing a lot of road games, and they'll need a miracle to play games in Albuquerque. But let's hope they get in seven games. And
I would have been down to watch some neutral site New Mexico Mountain West football. Sam Boyd.
You'd probably get a few hundred people if they actually opened it up to fans who would pay to go out and see some of the other Mountain West Conference teams. From Havasu George, yeah, he said beer and a slice of pizza at Sizzle Pie is on me during your next trip to Reno. I actually went to Sizzle Pie. It was pretty good. Yeah, it was real good. Yeah.
Well,
I think the entire staff was like fucking 8 joints in because they were real mellow, but they made good pizza. I enjoyed that.
My question is, why would Steve ever go to Reno willingly?
I don't want to go down this path again. I upset a lot of UNLV fans by saying that actually, when I go to Reno, I actually have a good time. But,
but you go for work. You would never be like, hey, let's pack up the cats and head up north.
You know what's funny? She would. Well, we're not going to move there. We're not going to pack up. You want me to take one of the cats on the road and just walk it around? She's kind of into grungy old stuff and dive bars like I am, divey setup. So she actually, I think she would go. That's a funny thing. She would go. But I ain't going on my own weekend to Reno. I can tell you that.
I don't mind it because I'm not really staying there. I'm just going to get on the bus and head up to Tahoe.
There you go.
Every time you ask, it's the same thing every time. What do we ask Dave? I was like, Dave,
I love Lake Tahoe. I even have.
No, but you're right. Like, but it's the same thing. Anytime you ask somebody about Reno and like why it's so fun, the first thing is like, well, Tahoe's 30 minutes away. It's like, yeah, 30 minutes away. Because Reno itself sucks.
We had Dave Hall on today from Fox 5, and he was trying to back Reno, and all he did was mention everything around Reno. We're like, yeah, that's what we're talking about.
I think there's a pretty nice trailer park just before you actually get into Reno.
There we go. Yeah, this one's John Carvelli. This one's not even close. New Orleans was dealing with COVID, and like 80% of the first quarter was closed down. New Orleans is better than Reno. That's not even close.
Well, yeah, and in New Orleans, you get bonus coverage of uncoverage because a lot of women flash on a regular basis in New Orleans, and they don't do that in Reno. It's too cold.
They might do it. You never know. Might not want to see them, but we're not talking full compliment.
That part.
All right. So we were. I was trying to be nice about Reno, and then that happens. It just gets.
No, listen. There are some things about girls with no teeth that are very appealing.
It's a good line. Does everyone in the chat room understand what Dave's saying? All right, try to figure it out. Whatever you can get, right, Dave? Whatever you can get. LSU and Auburn. Am I wrong for wanting LSU in this one? It's LSU 1.5. Am I wrong?
For what?
I want LSU.
I don't know. Like, I don't understand why I don't know, man. Like, their defense at times has looked so bad, like atrocious. And I get not wanting to bet on Auburn, and I get moving from 2 to like 1.5, like through 0 is not like the biggest move. I just don't really understand like all of the support for LSU, given how low like their defense has been, like the valley at which their defense has approached throughout the season. I don't know. I couldn't get a good read on this. I didn't really understand the move.
Auburn would be better off with Stevie Nicks at quarterback. This kid.
What's happening? What has happened to this guy? What is going on?
He's just not. He is going. He's actually regressed from last season, which is completely the opposite of what was expected. It's like, well, he's got a year under his belt, and it was facing great competition, and he should be a lot better this year. I didn't disagree with that. He's going backwards, and I at this point, I think Auburn's got to consider making a quarterback change. This might be his last stand tomorrow. It's like, dude, you're going up against a pretty soft LSU defense here. This is a very beatable defense. If you have another bad game, it's like we just can't go this route anymore. Let's put in the next guy and see what happens and start building for next year at quarterback. So I think it's a make or break game for Nix, and I'm not betting on him.
By the way, correct me if I'm wrong too, Dave. I don't want to say, well, I guess they did. They chose Nix over Gatewood, correct? Who's going to make his start for Kentucky this week?
Ooh,
I missed that. Right. I was reading a text. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so they chose Bo Nix. Like, obviously, Bo Nix was our guy last year, but they chose him over Joey Gatewood, right? Who's going to make his debut for Kentucky this weekend. Yeah. So, like, that's pretty interesting, just anecdotally, as we watch Bo Nix flounder around and regress as a quarterback, what Joey Gatewood could potentially be and what they're going to see with Kentucky. There's going to be something to watch, over the course of the season.
That will be fun to watch. Gatewood was fairly highly regarded. Obviously, I think his stock dropped because he couldn't beat out Nix last season, but should be a pretty motivated kid.
So Von Tobel, do I want to be on Kentucky plus 17? Georgia trying to get off the deck, had an extra week here with the bye week. They're laying 17.
I don't know, because I think it all depends on Gatewood. They were clearly limited, right, just with the way that their offense was set up. There's not a lot of talent at the skill positions other than running back, and they've just been a play good defense, run the ball type of team, and that doesn't lend itself to covering point spreads, at least when it comes to being a favorite. Staying within 17, if Gatewood's like any better at quarterback and adds some sort of dynamic element to their offense, I feel like it's a spot they could stay within 17. He's just an unknown to me, so I have no idea. Like, I feel like I'd rather have 17, but it's all dependent on whether Gatewood's going to add some explosiveness to their offense,
Yeah, and look, they still don't have the other skill positions are still not good.
Right.
And if Georgia comes in with a really bad attitude after the second half of that Alabama game, they could do a stomp job on Kentucky here. If they get out early, how does Kentucky catch up?
By the way, Bones with a bunch of numbers after it on Twitter. I don't know if they're still watching, but said beautiful stories about the cats. I don't know if that was sarcasm or they really want more cat stories, but we'll try to work them in. Dave and I have probably a combined 100 years with cat stories, so something to look forward to. And then John's just become a cat owner, so it's very special. It's very special on the late night podcast.
Yeah, it's super nice. Like at 3 a.m., getting like a freaking nose in my ear and just like. I'm like, dude, like, what are we doing?
We have a cat that likes to go out, so he'll come right up to you. It's either face on face or the paw goes right in the mouth after he's been out. You're like, thank you.
Nice.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
It's another reason I like them. I like old cats. They just want to kick around. That's it.
And I don't want to go out.
No.
Oh, there's Bones. Thank you, Bones. He was serious about the cats. Yeah.
The most interesting game in the SEC. We talked about this a little bit. I want to see Missouri against Florida. I don't think the Gators lose this game, but Missouri's getting better, and I wouldn't be shocked if they compete in this football game. I don't know if they're good enough to keep it real close, but I don't know if they're going to get blown out either. They're making progress. I think that the coach there is doing some nice things. He doesn't have the roster that the other teams in the league have, but I think he's getting the most out of what he's got. And you could say the same for Arkansas, and that's still a big rivalry game going back to their Southwest Conference days. Arkansas and Texas A&M. A&M cannot afford to take this team lightly tomorrow, or they could get stung.
Sports guy was asking about Mississippi State against Alabama, and the number right now, you can still get some 31s. A couple things. Petro's on Wednesday, so he follows. He's following these stories pretty closely. I don't know why I mentioned Petro. That was more Missouri. No, I wanted to bring up Brad Powers. Brad Powers was the one who was saying that, believe it or not, he actually likes Mike Leach's defense, and he thinks that Mississippi State can hold down Alabama enough to stay within the 31.
It's possible. The problem is, where's their offense going to come from?
Yeah.
Because a few weeks ago, somebody decided, hey, you know what? Leach hates to run the ball. He is completely stubborn, and he does not want to run the football. He's going to run his offense, and that's throwing the ball like 80% of the time. Let's put 8 guys in coverage,
and
take it away. And they've got all kinds of every SEC defense, basically, even Vanderbilt has speed on defense. I'm going to keep saying this. I don't think he's going to be a disaster at Mississippi State because he'll do what he always does, which is pull off an upset or two, and maybe get the. But I don't think it's going to work there. I think the air raid was made for the Pac-12.
How about the numbers last week? To your point about having a bunch of guys in the back end, they completed 30 passes. No, I'm sorry. It was 5.5 yards an attempt, and then on the running game, they had 20 carries for -2 yards. I mean, a lot of that was KJ Costello getting crushed in the backfield. So yeah, he better make some adjustments. Like you got to have a little balance. If you want to throw it all over the yard, you got to give a little threat on the ground.
This isn't the Pac-12, and it's not the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this conference is the best defensive conference in terms of personnel, the best defensive conference in the country by a lot. And I just don't think air raid's going to work there.
Well, and it goes back to that Auburn game we were talking about, right? Like LSU didn't have an answer for him. And like what this team has done since that LSU game has been jack shit offensively. And it makes me wonder how bad that team is, LSU, like defensively, and why I would want to support them from a wagering standpoint.
Well, but they also didn't play the right defense against Mississippi State. If you play the wrong defense against him, he'll tear you up. But he's never going to see the defense that LSU put out there in terms of scheme. He's never going to see it again. Done. You're going to have to figure out a way to beat an 8-man coverage, and you're not going to do it with tiny little underneath stuff and your quarterback getting annihilated because the offensive line can't protect against the 3-man rush. That part they'll fix in time. He'll get some better linemen. But I don't know why he's running the offense. This drives me wild about coaches. It always has. It's the same thing in basketball. I understand the game plan you want to implement, but until you have the personnel to implement that game plan, go with something else. To me, you're not a good coach if you can only run the same thing no matter what your personnel dictates.
Yep. Like we said at the very beginning of this, let's see what let's see what happens with Colorado State and Hawaii. Those guys have come in and now they want to change everything when they don't have the personnel. They don't have their personnel in place yet. So,
yeah, and by the way, it was kind of working the way it was in Hawaii, wasn't it?
I thought so.
Why do you want to change from? They were one of the most fun teams in the country to win to watch. And by the way, they won a lot of games. Right. Hawaii was supposed to be horrible, and Rolovich got him to two bowls in a row. I mean, he earned his promotion.
That year they started 6-1, Dave. I think their win total was like 2.
Yeah,
it was nuts what they was able to do with that team.
And they were, and I said this, I'm repeating it, but they were really fun to watch. We're gonna throw it all over the place. We're gonna have a good time doing it. And the fans in Hawaii were starting to show up at games again, which is nice. They ain't gonna show up to watch this.
No.
Dave, how about this one? You crush Leach, you crush Mississippi State. That their offense isn't going to work. The total 63, and sounds like you're suggesting this is going to be something like a 42-14 game.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I would favor the under here, although just for the record, I'm not very good on totals. Okay, and that's why I don't play them very often.
Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Sooners 16.
They look good last week. Rattler's coming into his own. They actually started to find a little running game last week, which has not been there for Oklahoma so far. Now, part of that was TCU doesn't have a good rush defense, and they wore out in the second half. I liked what I saw from Oklahoma, and they might be hitting their stride. On paper, they're still the best team in that conference, in my opinion. I have them a little better than Oklahoma State, although that could be a phenomenal game when they come together later.
One more. Someone was asking about Louisiana Monroe just sucks.
Oh.
Is 31 too much for App State to cover?
Depends on how much App State wants to play.
Right.
I don't know that you can answer that question. This is a week off for App State where they happen to be playing football.
I was looking for a look-ahead spot, but I don't know that's a look-ahead spot for App State.
They don't have a real big game next. I checked, and
no.
I was looking for that myself, and it's like, nah, it's like South Alabama or somebody. I don't remember who it is, but it's nobody they're going to be particularly excited about.
Let's bang through some NFL picks. Yeah, hype man dubs. We talked about a half an hour ago. We talked about the Spartans. That was a good play at 25 because 21.5 is actually 21. Michigan might be slightly overvalued. Minnesota no good. Yeah, I was kind of mentioning that earlier. NFL spots. All right, Dave. I always say it's your Patriots, but you don't care. Buffalo. You were into the Boston Patriots, not New England Patriots. Buffalo's 4 against the Patriots. This is a complete stay away from me. But God dang, I want to bet Buffalo because the Pats. I mean, is he tanking? They're so depleted? I mean, this week N'Keal Harry and Edelman are out, so now you got a bunch of undrafted free agents, practice squad guys. I mean, Cam's was having a tough enough time already.
Well, the thing is that for the first time in 2 decades, the numbers caught up. It didn't last week, and I mean, I'm not blowing my own horn, but I really liked the 49ers a lot last week, and made a bigger than normal play on it. It was the easiest winner on the board. But now, because Patriots should not have been favored in that football game. San Francisco's better than they are. Now, I think the line's about right. And I don't recall the last time I said that in a Patriots game, to be honest with you, because you're always paying a penalty for their superiority. It's just not there anymore. I do think Cam Newton has a better game than he had last week. That was as bad as he has ever played. He was awful in that game. So he's at least going to be motivated. And I don't know how much not having Edelman means at this point. It's not the same combination as Brady Edelman was. Edelman looks like might not have a lot left in the tank. Harry's a decent receiver, but he's not a speed guy. So I don't know how much they're going to miss him. I mean, they're going to have to nickel and dime their way down the field. The good news is Buffalo's been really unimpressive the last few weeks. They weren't good against the Jets. They weren't good the week before that. And they weren't good the week before that either. And the week before that, I think they blew a 28-3 lead and happened to win on a controversial pass interference penalty against the Rams. So they're not exactly a team. This is not a good year for the NFL's Eastern divisions. They are the Eastern divisions.
To say the least, yeah. John, you going to play this game?
I think I might. Yeah, I think I'm in on New England.
He's doing it. Buy low, buy low, buy low.
Well, yeah, and I thought it's funny. So I thought last week was the buy low opportunity. It was not. So now this might be the spot. But I agree with everything that Dave said. And to me, Dave, everything you mentioned, the numbers around Buffalo in terms of what they've done the last few weeks, especially offensively, like 17 points per game, 5.2 yards per play, like a negative 27-point differential. They haven't played well, and it all centers around Josh Allen. Their offense hasn't been good because Allen hasn't been good. That Jets game, right? He had a fumble. He threw two balls that should have been picked off if the Jets DBs know how to catch. He was not good in that game against New York. And I just keep going back to Bill Belichick versus Josh Allen. And in a way, that is a mismatch. He should be able to make Josh Allen be frantic Josh Allen, the guy that we have seen majority of his time in the NFL and what we've seen over the last 3 games.
I think my worry, though, is that Cam Newton might just be all done.
Yeah.
That's the worry I have. I mean, he was awful last week. It wasn't the San Francisco defense as much as it was the New England offense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a combination of things, too, right? Like, it's Cam not being very good and them not having anything in terms of talent. It's the skill positions. Like, even if Edelman was healthy, like, he's long in the tooth. He's not as explosive, right? And you mentioned N'Keal Harry. They swung and missed on him. They swung and missed on Sonny Michel in the first round. Like, Steve and I were talking about this on the show today. If you just go back, like, over the last few years, Belichick has surprisingly tried to get offensive talent in the first round, and he has been abysmal at evaluating that talent. And that's why they're at where they're at right now.
They need to go back to their old style of trading away all their early draft picks
Right.
and getting the mid-level guys in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round who are actually end up being overachievers. That's where he's always done his best work. You can't coach speed, and they don't have any. Actually,
Next up on the NFL board, Dolphins, Tua for start, 3.5. Rams on the road. Dave?
I don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do. So anything I say is going to be just extraneous information. I mean, he's going against the defense that's they're good. Okay, Donald is going to make them good. Miami's been better than I thought they would be, though. Just a better overall football team than I thought they would be, and they don't finish off drives real well, but they're good enough at getting down the field to kick field goals. So they might be able to hang into this game. I don't know what to do with it.
John?
Yeah, I thought so. I'm not going to bet it, Dave, and I didn't really know what to do with it either. If I was forced to select it, it would be Los Angeles, and you kind of mentioned like the reason for me at least. Their offensive line, Miami, is not very good, and I was kind of surprised that they chose this match. And I get it, it's after a bye, but I'm kind of surprised they chose a matchup with the front seven like this that can get after quarterbacks. They're in the top half of the league. I think they're top 5 in terms of sacks, top half of the league in terms of pressures, and a lot of it has to do with Aaron Donald. I just don't know how that works against a rookie quarterback and a bad offensive line, making his debut, by the way.
And here's the thing. I don't know how well. I'm not saying I'm not saying I have any idea on the reaction, but the Dolphins have played well lately, and I just wonder what the guys of the team. It's like, hey, wait a minute. We're winning games with Fitzmagic. Can you wait till we start losing? It's kind of like, it's not as dramatic, but it's kind of like the other night in the World Series where I understand why Cash took Snell out, and Snell was losing it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
He was losing it. His velocity had dropped like 4 to 5 miles an hour in that 6th inning, so he was close to the end. Nevertheless, when he took him out, that Dodger dugout came to life. It's like, yes, he's out of the game. So it was a bad move. This could also be a bad move, even though it makes sense. he's the quarterback of the future. There's no question about that. You want to start getting him in there. But do you do it when things are going well for your team? I don't know about that. I would not have made the move myself.
Yeah,
I would have waited 2 more games because they and this is the Rams are part of a kind of a mean schedule over the next 4 or 5 games for the Dolphins. And by the numbers, Rams third in the NFL with 24 sacks, and the Dolphins, according to the numbers, are 30th in the league in pass blocking in terms of the win rate, with a really low win rate. So good luck to Tua. Hopefully, it doesn't get broken in half by Aaron Donald.
And Dave, to your point too, I was surprised, and I don't know how much you like to use, some of like the other numbers like DVOA and Football Outsiders and their efficiency metrics, but the Dolphins, to like making this switch, the Dolphins led the AFC East. They're the best team in terms of overall team efficiency, and they're 7th in the AFC. Like where they're right, like they were a playoff team. Like they were a playoff team at this point right now, and then they're like, yeah, let's switch quarterbacks.
And that's the thing. I mean, they actually are a playoff contender.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like the Bills are surprising anybody. The Patriots 2-4. The Jets, I don't. Yeah.
But
sometimes
I guess
you just outthink yourself,
right?
I kind of think they might. And now, if they win, then it's like, okay, well, this. But to me, it's a gamble I would not have taken.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the argument too, though, right? Is like it's like, well, the upside of Tua, if he does come on strong like the rest of these young kids have, is a lot higher than Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
And so they're hoping, I think, that they tap into that upside, like going forward here. But I'm with you, the timing's weird.
And look, I get it. They're not.
Yeah.
Oh well, they're not a realistic Super Bowl contender this year. So, But the thing is, the players in that team right now, they don't give a shit about next year. They're trying to win now. They want to make the playoffs.
Well, and the best part is about next year, they have Houston's first round pick. And so they can push for a playoff seed and be perfectly right. It'd be perfectly fine for like the long run. And you get the added bonus of making the playoffs, breaking in a rookie quarterback, and getting a top overall pick that looks like it's going to be destined to be Houston. Like, it can fall pretty well for him.
Do you realize that every other general manager in the league, even Jerry Jones, probably said, "God damn it," when O'Brien got fired at Houston because he was so overmatched. That trade with Miami. I mean, when they made the trade, it's like, wait a minute, you gave up what for an offensive lineman?
Mm-hmm.
Huh? You don't do that. There's just no way you do that. And that guy's a good player, but you just don't give up that much for an offensive lineman unless it's a Hall of Famer. It's not Jonathan Ogden they traded for. Okay?
And the Dolphins, if Tua is like the guy that we expect him to be, the Dolphins are going to look back in 5 years. The only reason this tank worked was because of Bill O'Brien. He was the reason why they hit it out of the park because Bill O'Brien's a moron when it comes to being a general manager. Nobody's ever going to be able to pull off a tank like they did because there's nobody stupid enough to deal picks like that.
Next up, Seattle and San Fran. Dave, you said you really liked the Niners a week ago. Now what? Why is this only 3? Especially with the Seattle defense. I know it's up in Seattle, but we're not talking, 80 billion fans there. And that's another one of those places that probably has another, point and a half home field advantage beyond the normal 3. Right now, Seahawks are 3 over San Fran.
Yeah, I still think San Francisco, and the injuries are killing them, just killing them. And they got more guys hurt this week. But everybody got down to the 49ers because they didn't win the Super Bowl, I guess, and kind of laid an egg to start the season. But I still think they're the best team in that division. So I don't think I'll take them here because I got my money out of them last week. And this isn't a great spot. But I still think 49ers are the best team in that division.
Yeah, there's Nick. Nick's our buddy from UNLV. He runs the UNLV broadcast. Russ losing back-to-back division games. I'm on Seattle, but could it happen? Yeah, it's not Russ losing the games, it's the freaking defense. It's terrible.
They lose the yardage in like every game.
Yep.
It's good. It's starting to catch up with them. The team starts 4-0 and they got outgained in all 4 games.
Yeah, they lose the yardage. They lose the yardage and they're averaging like 500 yards a game. Like it's insanity.
Bad defense. It's a really bad defense.
John, what are you doing? Are you doing Seattle?
If I had to, I don't think this will be one I'm involved with, but like the offense is operating at such a high level at this point. Like it's going pretty well for them. And I don't know if the returns are going to be like brought in this game, but you did acquire a pretty good piece along the defensive line that should help you out in the long run, right, going forward. I don't know how impactful it is in a game like this, but they should be a little bit better, you would think, defensively. I don't know how much one player changes things for a defense that bad, but it should help.
Who wants the Nooch? Ben DiNucci and the Cowboys plus 11 now against anybody?
Dude,
The Nooch.
I mean, it's simplistic. Again, what have you seen from Philadelphia makes you think that you want to lay 11 points with them? I don't think there's anybody who has seen anything that would make you want to lay 11. Give me the Nooch all day here.
Just run the ball every play. Don't fumble it, and you'll stay in the game. Now you can't keep fumbling it, Ezekiel Elliott.
Right.
But no, there's not a chance in the world I'd lay 11 here.
Yep. Well, and Dave, I made this comparison. Look, the Bills, who started the year 4-0, who are in much better situation, despite the fact they haven't really performed very well over the last 3 games, they couldn't cover. The number closed 9.5 against the New York Jets. They couldn't cover 9.5 against the Jets. Why would the Eagles be able to cover 11 right now the way they're playing, even if it is the Cowboys?
That's not a division to lay points in.
Yep.
Mark and LV says 14-10 game.
It's everything we deserve in 2020.
Could very well
have a primetime game between these two teams and have it be like a 10 or 13-10 game. By the way, the same day that the Ravens and the Steelers are playing one another at 10 a.m.
Yeah, really.
Dave, what do you think of this? A lot of the money here is on Baltimore, moving it up to 4.5. The Ravens against the Steelers. We had Stanford Rout on earlier, and he said, "Hey, a lot of it comes down to the quarterback, and he likes Big Ben more." Who do you like?
Public's liking the Steelers, which scares me. I don't like public dogs. Really don't.
Yeah.
They're playing pretty good football, though.
John?
I laid Ravens 3.5 earlier in the week. I thought this was a pretty good buy low opportunity for him. And the one thing that, I've talked about with the Steelers that kind of worries you is that offense, right? They're, I think, 18th in terms of overall efficiency. Ben Roethlisberger in this offense at times has looked a little bogged down. Case in point, last week against the Titans, who, by the way, went into that game 22nd in defense, and yet in the second half they couldn't do anything against them. And, you also saw at the end of that game, too, Ben Roethlisberger still has a penchant to put the ball in danger, right? They were driving down. They could have scored a touchdown, and ultimately he puts the ball in a very tight window, and it turns into an interception, and the Titans have a chance to potentially tie the game, and they miss the game-tying field goal. So I laid 3.5 with Baltimore. I get a top 5 defense. They went and acquired Yannick Ngakoue just for a game like this so they can improve the pass rush and get after Roethlisberger and move him off his spot. Yeah, I think I liked. Well, obviously, I think I like them. I laid 3.5. I like the Ravens.
75% of the tickets are on Pittsburgh, but the lines move from 3.5 to 4.5 on the Baltimore side. Okie dokie. What do we think about the Raiders? I saw someone earlier say, basically Cleveland sucks. Why are they favored here? They're 5-2. Vegas is 3-3. Cleveland's 2.5. Dave, your thoughts?
Yeah, Raiders got to look. I know he makes occasional great catches. But I'm blanking on his name. The guy was with the guy was with the Eagles and is now with the Raiders.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nelson Aguilar. My bad. I don't know why I was
drops too many balls. Okay.
Yeah.
He dropped too many balls with the Eagles and he still does.
He hadn't dropped one the whole season until last week. He's back on track
last week. And they'll come in bunches with him. They just do. Gotta get the first round pick. Higgs. I'm
Ruggs.
terrible with names.
Henry Ruggs.
Ruggs.
Mm-hmm.
Got to get him more involved.
Performance enhancing Ruggs.
The kid's got. Everybody knows he's got great wheels.
Yeah.
He also never drops the football. His numbers in college were fantastic, absolutely fantastic. If you threw the ball to him, he caught it every time. And he's a difference maker with that speed. I think he's got to be get him out there, stretch the field, and that also allows for more opportunities to throw to the tight end, who's one of the best in the league. I think that to me is the direction I want to see. Turn it into a track meet, because that's what this game looks like. This could be a really up and down the field football game. Raiders weren't as bad as the score indicates last week. They were down 4 points in the fourth quarter with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So that score was misleading. They didn't play that bad a game against Tampa. And somebody, Nip, mentioned it. Cleveland's secondary is so bad. It isn't good. I think this is the game the Raiders have a real life shot to win in.
Yeah, the one of the issues though, Dave, is the weather is going to suck. It's going to be wet, and it's going to be about 25-mile-per-hour winds. So
I think Adam's in the chat. I see him there, and I think that he mentioned on the spot today, Steve, like gusts of like 40 miles an hour, something ridiculous in that game in the Cleveland game.
Yeah, true.
So
that's good. That's the weather there. 47 degrees, will rain, 25-mile-per-hour winds.
Yeah.
And those are tough to handicap.
Yeah.
They really are. I mean, you're guessing at those. It's played havoc with me in a couple of golf matchups today where my guys, unfortunately, the later tee times, and it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, I kind of like Cleveland here a little bit. I mean, just one, what's funny is too, sometimes, right, like the number tells you something. It is interesting that the number's just sat at 2.5 all week and not moved to that 3. I do think part of that is the loss of Odell Beckham Jr., which is a big loss, but I think you can also make the case that an offense like Cleveland kind of negates the loss of a guy of that skill set just because of the way they run the ball and the way their offense operates. And I do feel like Cleveland, with the weather and how bad the Raiders have been up front, that this is a game that they'll be able to run their offense the way that they want to. Like I've called Cleveland a team in purgatory, Dave, because I think Cleveland should be better than teams in the range of like the Raiders, the Bengals, the Washington football team, right, where they should be able to win those games, but they're nowhere near the teams like the Steelers and the Ravens, and they're going to get their heads caved in like they did in their 2 losses. And I just feel like this is another one of those games. They should be able to run the ball pretty well, and I think they should come away with a win. Yeah, Adam, they did spray the ball. They sprayed the balls with water at practice. Yeah, so I might be fucked
on the slick footballs. Dave, let's transition real quick here. We'll spend I don't know, like 5 minutes or so, and then we'll get you out of here on La Russa versus Hinch and the White Sox. And by the way, the rest of Dave's stuff is up at wagertalk.com, NFL and especially college. So go to wagertalk.com. They're doing videos all week long, so you want to go check that out. All right. You're the old guy on the show, so maybe you'll step up for 76-year-old Tony La Russa. He got absolutely blistered. I saw Jeff Passan write a good story today on ESPN.com about Reinsdorf basically just wanted to make up for the past. He feels like he owes La Russa because he blew it, some 30 years ago when Ken Harrelson was given, believe it or not, control of the organization and blew out La Russa. La Russa goes on to become this legendary, 3-time champion, 6 times in the World Series. Can you back a La Russa hiring at 76 years old with this young White Sox team?
No.
Okay, see ya.
No, he's too old. Don't hire the player's grandfather to be the manager. You want to make him a bench coach? Perfect. Zimmer. Look how great Zimmer was. A great bench coach. But nobody was hiring him to manage anymore at that age.
Right.
Bench coach was perfect because he could be a mentor to both the manager and to the players. But 76-year-old, no. Especially with Hinch was available. And Cora was available. No. Tigers win that when it's like really? You didn't hire AJ Hinch? Hey, AJ, come on over here. We just drafted we had a really good draft. We got a couple of really good pitchers on the way up. We're going to be pretty good in a couple of years. We think that you might be the guy to be there when we turn the corner. And they're right. That was a very good hire by the Tigers.
Jerry Reinsdorf has never been a good owner, will never be. Well, the will part's ridiculous. He's 84 years old, but he had Jordan Land in his lap, and Jabba the Bull was a good GM. But he doesn't.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and the other thing, Dave, and I did a whole thing on this on the show today, so I'll just have you react or tell me I'm wrong. It also undercuts La Russa being hired, undercuts Ken Williams, who did a fucking brilliant job of just freaking pillaging other clubs for top guys.
Fantastic job. And they, to me, I thought it was a no-brainer. I thought for sure they're going to hire Hinch.
Yep.
And with that young team, I might have, and I don't even like betting futures. I might take a shot with the future, even though it won't get any value because the White Sox are really popular. There's so many Chicago bettors out here. They beat the shit out of every Chicago number. But that's team really, really ready to turn the corner. Cleveland's not going to be as good next year. I think Minnesota's as good as they're going to get. It just looked like a terrific spot. But and look, this is the problem with an 84-year-old owner. To him, La Russa's a kid.
10 years as senior. He's like, look at this young guy. Let's bring him in.
Oh, and I think his hair's still dark because he colors it. So, he fooled Reinsdorf. Reinsdorf thinks he's 40.
So awful.
But on the flip side of it, LaRusso is a great guy with animal rights. So I like what he does off the field.
So Chicago's in for a treat when it comes to the rights of their animals, but not so much their baseball team though.
They're gonna probably have a lot of bark in the parks next year in Chicago. That's a good thing.
I would, by the way, to that quote or to that comment, I would love if LaRussa came out. I was like, yeah, I've been logging on to FanGraphs. I've been checking out BABIP. It sounds like a really solid number. I think we'll be factoring that in a little bit more.
Well, as a rule, managers like to hire somebody older to be the bench coach. So I'm wondering who can he talk Tommy Lasorda into being his bench coach? Make a move to Chicago.
So amazing. All right, Dave, we'll let you run. We appreciate it tonight. Real good spot. Good luck tomorrow. I hope you win a bunch.
I hope so too. Have a good weekend, boys.
See you, Dave.
Right. There you go. The legendary Dave Koken. Absolutely legendary. I had a couple of wild card topics. One I wanted to mention because John sent this over for the rundown. We never got to it. What do you think of Khabib and Dana?
Like
UFC.
in terms of Dana, like saying he's probably going to come back for 30-0.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense to a certain extent. Like I can I can understand the emotion of not wanting to fight again after the loss of your father and how much of a big part he was in terms of your preparation as a fighter. So I can understand wanting to retire immediately after a very big win like that. But I don't know. It kind of feels insensitive to sit there, but like, he'll be back given the reason that he retired.
Yeah.
I
think he could come back. We got a weird note today. We always like to pull back the curtain. And I don't know that Ari's getting it, that anything he sends me, I'm going to use it on the air. Like he was shitting on Miller Lite today. And then I pulled the joke mentioning that the TI had like massive Miller Lite sponsorship, which they don't. But for like a minute, he was like, oh, shit. He sends over on Khabib. Ready for this one? He goes, this reminds me of when Mitch Moss left Lotus. And one of the bosses told him he knew he'd be coming back. Like,
that's the only one.
I don't think that's. Well, I mean, John was told by another manager, just wait until you come back a couple of years from now and work at a real radio company, which John mentions all the time now and just laughs. But I was like, no, that was not. This is like Dana. I don't think Dana dislikes Khabib. He's not like bitter and like Khabib doesn't have a life without me. That was sort of the suggestion towards Mitch. Like, it's only going to work here, brother. You're not that good. No, it's not. Khabib is not like Mitch and the boss. Khabib and Dana is not like Mitch and the boss.
To be fair, Mitch did come back.
What do you mean? Well, the first time around, but the second time. We're talking about the second time that he went to Visa. The boss was like, you'll be back. Like, nah, I won't.
You'll be back.
Actually,
I don't know if it's going to work out.
No, you're right. Technically, he does come back because he does the William Hill show. So he's on the airwaves every once in a while when Paulie bails.
I still don't know that show is going to work out.
Mitch and Paul?
Yeah.
No, if they keep fucking with Gil, it's not going to work out. Do it, Gil. Do it. That's all I got in terms of smart ass remarks. We wanted Adam in because Adam texted me on something I was talking about during the week. Xavier Pope, our regular on Thursday, and we'll close out with John's review of Circa because I know John wants to go to sleep or get whacked. Xavier Pope, I saw Xavier Pope, who was our Thursday legal guest, culture guest, about 2 weeks ago, talk about seeing The Cabin with Bert Kreischer and said it was great. And he mentioned one scene with this lady, Miss Pat. And hey, this is what a great concept for a show, blah, 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 blah. I watched it and then I tried it again. Like I watched the first two and I just did not like episode 2. I just think it's infantile and I can be infantile, but I thought it was silly. Then I watched episode 3. That was the one with Miss Pat and Kaylee Cuoco. That was kind of okay. And then they did a final episode and then, the guys on the show were funny, but like, it got to the end of just 4 episodes, and I was like, good. I'm done. Did you binge it tonight, or you just watched the early parts?
No, I actually only watched the Kaylee Cuoco episode.
Which is the best one.
That was solid.
Oh, okay. You watched it, John?
I was just seeing the Kelly Cuoco one.
Kaylee Cuoco?
Yeah.
It's the show's weird. Like, I actually think it has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
But I think it was made very weird. First of all, like when you have a personality like Miss Pat, who just like dominates everything, and then like everybody else is creeped out and like uncomfortable. I think it makes for some good moments, but the way it's cut up, like you're just seeing like they're going back and forth from present to future, or like present to past, and it's a weird way to make the show. And then like some parts like Kaylee Cuoco's there, and then some parts she's not, and then some parts Joel McHale is there, and then sometimes he's not.
Yep.
It was a very weird way to cut up the episode. I thought the editing was very weird. The show has some potential.
No, the concept is borderline brilliant. It's a guy going out to, it's a nice cabin. It's not like he's roughing it, but he goes out to this cabin and he wants to clean up his life, wants to do this holistic stuff, try some new adventures, but they never really venture from the cabin for adventures.
No.
I don't know, man. Like I love comedians, like a lot of the people that were on there, and it's not easy to be funny. It's not their act. A lot of them I was like, this is. I mean, and then Caitlyn Jenner's on episode 2. Go ahead and watch that. What a hoot that is. I don't know. It's a weird show.
Well, and somebody, Cameron said, I haven't seen anything, but anything with Kaylee Cuoco is solid. But have you ever seen Kaylee Cuoco actually be Kaylee Cuoco?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, she got her confidence just fucking bandied about, and then she was completely submissive. As Miss Pat at some point was just gonna just lay on her and squash her.
Well, and for like, she's really only in 2 scenes, right? One, she's like fishing, and she's kind of funny, like trying to be, trying to take it all in or whatever. And then one, she's trashed at a kitchen table,
right,
and trying to like exchange jokes, but like Miss Pat is just crushing her. And you feel so bad. And then the weird one is like Joel McHale, who I thought
Joel McHale was really good against Miss Pat.
He's awesome. He's awesome. Yeah. But here he's
great.
Also
sorry, not to cut you off. He's just great in general, like in terms of his quick wit and everything like that. McHale's fantastic.
I made Joel McHale stand. Like there's no question about it.
Dude, the soup with him was peak.
I've also told the story like when people ask me who's like the nicest celebrity I've ever met, it's hands down Joel McHale. Like there's not even a close second.
At the Palms, didn't you pull a Reynolds on McHale?
I didn't pull. No, he pulled a Reynolds on me. I think
you threatened to fight him.
No, like he was on the show, so he was like, "Yeah, I want you guys to come by or the show or whatever." And I don't even know if it was our show. It might have been the early show, and I was just in for it or whatever. Whatever it was, he was at the station. He's like, "Yeah, you guys should come by." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I love Joel McHale. I'll go by." And I went by, and then I went up to him after the show, and I was like, "Hey man, great! That was a great set. Like, it's awesome." And he was like, "Oh, cool. Like, where should we have dinner?" And I was like, "Wait, what?
Me? You having dinner?
That's dope, dude."
Adam's like, "No, I'm out."
I was panicked because I was like, because in my mind, because you know how I work, like my mind works. I was like, this dude thinks like I'm stalking him, and I'm like, here for him to buy me dinner. I was literally there because he was like, "Hey, come by the show," and I wanted to see the show, and I wanted to say hi. So in my mind, I'm thinking he thinks I'm being weird, like coming up to him and like hanging around him. But in actuality, as I talked to him, he was like, "Hey, look, like honestly, I'm on the road, 200 nights a year when I'm not doing the show," and he's like, "I don't know anybody, and it was cool to have like a familiar face. Like I just don't know people."
So
I was like, "Holy fuck!"
What was the outcome?
We had like a couple drinks, but we didn't go to dinner. Yeah.
That's dope.
Oh, yeah.
No, because
he's an unbelievable dude.
Because I'm with you, Adam. Like I am a big since I was in. I think it was like whatever year he did Toxu when he was doing the soup. Like, and I was like 14, 13 at the time, whatever. And all the years he did it, he's fucking great. I would have been like, fuck yeah, man.
By the way, The Soup is one of the best shows of all time, and he hasn't done it. I mean, he did the Joel McHale show, which basically was The Soup on Netflix, right. But he hasn't done The Soup in like 20 years.
Yeah,
something like that. He showed up on the cabin, and that Miss Pat's like, "Oh, you from The Soup?" Like, no, I'm not.
But the amazing thing is because that was kind of the whole bit. The amazing thing is for the viewers who haven't seen it, I don't want to ruin it, but Miss Pat was with Kelly Cuoco was like Big Bang Theory. What?
And then $1 million an episode for
McHale even brings it up. He's like, they were making $1 million. She did. I thought McHale
Miss Pat knew.
Right. Oh, she knew that they were making $1 million.
She ripped her for it.
Yeah.
She was so mad. Like, who would walk up to someone who makes $1 million an episode and go, "Fuck that! You aren't worth that." And she did it. And Kelly Cuoco was like,
But not only that part, like Miss Pat became a comedian at like 40 years old, like after she'd been through some real hardcore shit.
Yeah, her
like,
story.
Real, yeah. But
I mean, she talked about being a cocaine dealer, and then her and her guy at the time exchanged gunshots, and that's pretty cool.
And I've seen some of her acts, and I've known about it for a while, but like to see her in that setting was a little different. But at one point, like they're going back and forth, and Bert Kreischer, I thought, had a good question of like, would you give up all those life experiences, including all the kids that you've had when you started at 14? Would you give that up to have started comedy at like 15 and like had that clean route of comedy to try to be, a smash success and, have the life that Kaylee Cuoco had as being a big star at 15 years old and going on with a career until you're like in your mid 30s? And she was like, hell no, she doesn't have no diversity in her life. Like, all right. And Kaylee Cuoco was just like, okay, you hate me.
Yeah, she did break her.
It was great. Yeah, I loved it.
So I guess that's one of the redeeming parts of it. If they come back with more of the cabin, then it's got to be Miss Pat and Kreischer invite people.
I think she was good for one episode. She like swallows so much of the gravitational pull.
And her bit is basically fuck everything.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, like, all right.
Yeah, this is a good point from John though too. Yeah, sorry.
What is it? If you learn to be comfortable around a celebrity, you wouldn't have screwed things out with Mario Lopez. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I'm not good at it either. My McHale-like story. If I, as a Jets fan, if I told people that Mark Gastineau, who was like a hero of the '80s Jets, right, the New York Sack Exchange, do you know who Mark Gastineau is, John?
Yeah.
Right. So, and a monster of a dude. He's like 6'5" and still 250 pounds. I don't know what he's doing now, but this is 20 years ago, so it wasn't really that far after his career. But we were doing a show in New York at the All-Star Cafe, and Gastineau came on. I think he came on the show, but he was just kind of like hanging out around the show, and I'm like, "The fuck's going on?" Like to Adam, like I reacted like Adam, like, why does Mark Gastineau want to hang around this stupid radio show?
Yeah.
And then the show finishes, and like the sports pig, who he's Paris, he lived a good life, right? He lived hard. Pig's like, yeah, Gastineau wants to go out. He wants to go out, get something to eat, and go to a strip club. And I was like what I should have done is I should have gone out, and I didn't go out because I was like, at the time I was like, this guy's a wild man. He's gonna make me do cocaine because he was high as a kite. Like he's gonna make me do cocaine, and then we're gonna go to a strip. We're gonna go to Scores, and he's gonna bail like 5 minutes before we're done. I'm gonna have like a $7,000 bill. And then Adam knows the way the sports pig used to work. Like Pig wasn't paying a fucking bill. Pig would roll up bills. Like we went, not bills, like because he wasn't going to snort cocaine, but like Pig would just drink, and he'd buy so many fucking drinks for the strippers.
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, you can pay, and I'm like, what just happened? Like I don't have $6,000 to pay the Gastineau sports pig strip club bill.
No, his favorite thing was like he would go run up these huge bills at a strip club. And then ask us to pay, and then he, like at the time you were running the show on your own, like you kind of owned the show.
We had a little company.
He would be like, "Don't worry, it's a write-off." You're like, "That's not how it fucking works." He's like, "You own the company, just write it off." Like, no, it doesn't work that way. What are you talking about? Write it off? It's fucking crazy. But John, have you heard the pig garlic bread story?
No.
God. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite stories.
And it's so stupid, but it is just like a basic notion or rule of life. It really is.
So there's an Italian place in San Diego that Steve and I fucking love. It is incredible, the food there. And the garlic bread is like, it's like a wheel of garlic bread, and there's 6 slices, right? Mm-hmm. So we ordered it. We take Pig there. He's like, this spice is great. Of course, it's fucking awesome. And so we're eating it. We order the garlic bread. And as we're sitting there having the meal, at some point I'm like, I had 1 piece of garlic bread. And Steve's like, yeah, me too. And I'm like, what? It's gone. Like there's 3 of us. Like what the hell's going on? There are 6 pieces. And we're like, wait, did you have 4 pieces of the garlic bread? And he goes, I wasn't counting. Okay, you have 2. It's not that hard to figure out. Like everybody has 2 pieces. What do you mean you were counting? You had 4. We had 1 each. Like what kind of counting do you have to do? I wasn't counting. Okay. Have you ever like not counted when you're in a situation?
Of course not. Especially when it comes to sharing food.
Of course, you always count.
You always do the same thing every time. You're like, all right. there's this many pieces. Everybody at least gets one, and then the sweat starts to come in when there's an uneven amount, and you're like, who's gonna take the last one? What's gonna happen?
Because you always want the last one, but you don't want to be the person that takes the last one.
Of course.
Like, I get that. But when there's 3 people eating and there's 6 slices of garlic bread, it's fucking easy to do.
It's also
I wasn't counting.
it's also you don't really have to count to 2. You kind of know when you hit. You just know when you hit 2.
You had 2. It still to this day makes me laugh every time I think of that story. It's so incredible. Just the sheer nonsense. I wasn't. And he shrugged.
Yeah, I will say we probably could have ordered another garlic bread, but he would have taken it on that one too. And now looking back, I definitely should have gone out for. I don't think I would have done cocaine, but a night of cocaine and strippers with Pig and Gastineau. I blew it on that one, but I did avoid. I did avoid the $5,000 bill.
I feel like if you're going to go out with gas, like I'm not a cocaine person, but if you're gonna do it, like, don't you have to do it right? Like, all right, I'm gonna go out with Gastineau and do some coke.
Yeah,
John, no, this is fucking wrong. I'm not accepting this. If there's a huge thing of garlic bread, fine. Or like the unlimited bread or whatever. If you order a thing of 6, no, it's not.
That's what you're talking about. The bread.
If garlic bread stacked up and you really you almost can't assess the number, right? But it was in a wheel and it was like a little mini pizza. It was easy to read.
Yeah. Yes. It is. It's served like a mini pizza. That's exactly what it is. No, John, I'm not accepting that.
Yeah, the communal bread is fine, not garlic bread. That's something you order.
Right.
I will say, Sports Pig and coronavirus. Holy shit!
What?
I don't know. What would he have done?
I think he would have been a believer.
Oh no, I think he would have been a believer. I just mean from the cleanliness standpoint. I mean, how would he manage this?
Oh yeah.
And then you're doing communal food with him in the pandemic.
It's not good.
It ain't good. Not at all.
Just write it off. I think he racked up it was real quick, like in like a half hour. It was like a $400 bar tab at Cheetah's. Steve will pay it. He'll write it off.
So next Tuesday, who wants to at least be part? We might just do an Alex and myself happy hour on Tuesday night, and then just sort of pop people in for reaction. John, you can certainly handle it, right?
What's Tuesday?
Election day.
Oh, yeah. I can talk. I'm not fading, by the way. I'm reading. But yeah.
But you can handle it?
Yeah, I can come in for sure. You might hear screaming in the background of my home, depending on what happens, but I'll be good.
Oh, really? The wife is a Trump supporter?
It depends on how it goes, but no, she is not.
We're still 50-50 on Adam. I don't know what we're going to do. I guess it depends on how it's going.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. What? If you don't know what you're going to do with what?
Life.
Or just period?
It's going to be a mess.
Well, what happens if Biden wins?
I'll be sad. I want Trump.
Shut up. My biggest worry is actually Cofield and Company on Wednesday. So, John, you might have to look ahead, see if you're available, because I think a clear Biden win, and if I don't know, Adam, with a lot of our listeners just gloating for 3 hours on Wednesday.
I mean,
that's dangerous.
It's not going to be decided.
As long as we get all the results in on election day, anything past that's fraudulent. So as long as we know on Tuesday,
yeah. Florida looks really bad right now. By the way,
like, what do we mean by this?
Florida's not looking good. The early vote numbers in Dade are really fucking bad. Like really bad.
It's a low number in Dade and Broward.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah. Which is what gives a Democrat a chance to win the state. And we know election day in Dade and Broward. Oh boy, watch the images there.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Has anybody watched the documentary yet?
No, I need to though.
Which one?
I might do it right now. It's about the 2000 election in Florida.
It's like a number.
It's called the 537 or something like that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Is this going to be a pick me up for you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of already like starting to panic, freaking out a little bit. And I actually don't even really care that much about the presidential race. In all honesty, I don't.
Do you think if the Senate was flipped, that fixes a lot?
A lot, yeah.
How fucking crazy would he be for the next 4 years if he doesn't have the Senate?
Well, I mean, I actually think he might.
Trump
I
doesn't have
think he might just straight become a liberal. He doesn't have beliefs. He doesn't have any sort of belief system or values or morals or anything. He tries to just, be this weird dictator. And if he couldn't get anything done, I think he would just flip.
Yeah, would that be the ultimate heel turn in the history of American politics?
That'd be great.
I'm just remembering his rally in Arizona the other day. The embattled senator. What's the lady's name?
Yes.
It's like, hurry, quick. I want to hear this right now. Come on, quick. She's like, I'm coming, President
Did
Trump.
you see this, Steve?
No, I didn't say it.
Dude,
So
try to call it's so good. If you Google Trump McSally, it was the rally that was I mean, it was technically a Las Vegas rally.
Yeah, Bullhead City.
Yeah,
Bullhead
it was.
City.
That was in Vegas, huh?
Well, no, it was technically, but they weren't allowed to have a crowd, so they did it in Bullhead City,
Oh, okay.
like right across from Laughlin, so that all the Vegas people could come over. But yeah, and then he allowed Martha McSally makes the journey up to fucking Bullhead City, where I'm sure she's not campaigning at all, and he basically tells her she can have like 30 seconds.
It's so good, dude.
And then he let Nigel Farage speak for like 20 minutes, who has nothing to do with the election. The Brexit guy.
I
He
love
just
it.
let him speak for as long as he wanted.
It
And
was
Martha McSally, who has completely sold every ounce of any sort of humanity or decency she's ever had to just bow at his altar.
Yep.
He's like, come on, you got a minute. Nobody wants to hear you. Let's go. Come on. Like, okay, bro. Like, settle down.
So good.
Such an asshole.
But that's the more
zero
pathetic.
loyalty.
The more pathetic part is her like actually jogging up. She's like,
Oh,
I'm coming,
running.
President. Yeah, I'm
Running.
coming.
Running to get her 30 seconds. It's unreal.
Oh man. Actually,
I'll look it up after.
to be honest with you guys, I'm not gonna lie. I've been hearing all this these talking points. I really like Christmas. And if Biden's our president and I don't get Christmas anymore,
Or Thanksgiving.
and he takes away my air conditioning,
Everything's being taken away. Wait,
What
air,
am I gonna do?
air conditioning?
Yeah, because the Green New Deal, no more air conditioning.
Yeah, no air conditioning, no heater.
No airplanes, no heater, no air conditioning, no airplanes, no gas, no Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no 4th of July, no nothing.
This might actually work.
Well, unfortunately, like 70% of people have already voted.
Nice.
Bro.
All
Poor
right.
Martha McSally.
That'll wrap it for the week. Adam, I appreciate you jumping in. Go watch your documentary. I might watch the same thing as a pick me up. I got to get my money down offshore on these Trump states where he's a dog. I got to get in on this. This is gonna be a wild weekend. It's gonna be wild up until Tuesday. Crazy. Gotta win some money, and if I lose, I lose. All right.
Oh, yeah. Windmills are gonna kill the birds and give us cancer.
Nobody knows more about wind than I do.